2 weeks ago, a video went viral and almost rewrote the entire story of one of the most watched quarterback competitions in the NFL. Almost. Because Judy just came out and said something that nobody in the Watson camp was prepared for. He confirmed that the video was doctored, edited, deliberately manipulated to create a narrative that had zero basis in reality. And the moment he said that, everything changed. Every argument that Watson supporters had been leaning on, every claim about locker room preferences, every whisper about veteran players secretly backing the older quarterback, all of it collapsed in real time. Right now, Shedeur Sanders is standing in a position that very few quarterbacks ever get to stand in. He has been dominant on the field, dominant in the film room, dominant in the statistics. And now the one piece of so-called evidence that people were using to question his hold on the starting job has been proven to be completely fabricated. What you are about to hear is not just about a viral video. This is about how misinformation tried to steal a quarterback competition, how it nearly worked, and why Shedeur Sanders is still standing when the smoke finally clears. Now drop one word in the comments right now. Just one. Does Shedeur Sanders deserve to be QB1 for the Cleveland Browns? One word. That is all.
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Before we get into what Judy actually said, you need to understand exactly how dangerous that viral moment was and why it hit as hard as it did when it first surfaced. Context matters here because without understanding the environment that video dropped into, you cannot fully appreciate why its debunking is such a massive deal. Shedeur Sanders had been putting in work that was genuinely hard to argue against. The numbers were stacking up in his favor. The film was backing him. The coaching staff was watching a young quarterback operate with the kind of accuracy and decision-making that franchises spend years searching for. He was going 21 of 26 in reps. He was protecting the football with a discipline that Watson was not matching. He was executing Todd Monken's offensive system with a fluency that looked less like a player still learning the playbook and more like someone who had already made himself at home in it. And then the video dropped. Judy throwing up 4 fingers. That was it. That was the whole visual. 4 fingers raised, and within hours, an entire counter-narrative had been constructed around it. People were claiming this was coded communication. People were saying a veteran receiver was quietly signaling to the world that the locker room had already made its decision, and the decision was not Shedeur Sanders. The claim was that behind the scenes, away from the cameras and the practice field metrics, the real power in that building was shifting toward Deshaun Watson. And here is the thing about that kind of narrative. It does not need to be proven to be effective. It just needs to feel credible. It just needs enough people to share it and enough sports personalities to amplify it before it takes on a life of its own. And that is exactly what happened. Within 48 hours of that video surfacing, the conversation had shifted. Shedeur's numbers were being dismissed. His film was being second-guessed. His leadership was being questioned. All because of 4 fingers raised in a casual moment on a TikTok live session that nobody had bothered to look at closely enough. That is the environment this story is unfolding in. That is the media landscape where Shedeur Sanders has been trying to win a quarterback competition while also fighting against a manufactured narrative designed to undermine him at every turn. Here at Gridiron Ground, we do not deal in manufactured drama. We deal in what actually happened, what the film actually shows, and what the facts actually support. And right now, the facts are telling a story that Watson's supporters desperately did not want told. Because here is what was really happening on that practice field while people were sharing that viral video and building arguments around it. Shedeur Sanders was still throwing, still executing, still doing the one thing that no doctored video can fake, performing. And the coaching staff was still watching every single rep with the kind of attention that only gets paid to a quarterback they believe in. The video created noise, But Shedeur's
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
performance was the signal, and signals always outlast noise. What you need to know about the person who started spreading that edited footage, and what their motivation tells us about the desperation in the Watson camp, is something we are going to get into right now, because it changes the entire frame of this conversation. When Judy decided to speak, he did not do it with the energy of someone who felt like they had to. He did it with the calm confidence of someone who understood that silence was no longer an option, because the video had gotten too big, the narrative had gotten too loud, and the misinformation had started doing real damage. So he came out and said what actually happened. He was on a casual TikTok live session. He was relaxed. He was being himself with fans, the kind of unguarded moment that athletes have when they are not thinking about every word being analyzed and every gesture being framed by people looking for ammunition. He was not discussing the quarterback competition. He was not sending coded messages to the locker room. He was not trying to influence anything related to football at all. His daughter is 4 years old. Someone asked how old she was. He threw up 4 fingers. That is the entire story behind the 4 fingers. A father proud of his little girl, answering a fan's question in the most natural way possible. There was no subtext. There was no signal. There was no insider information being communicated through a hand gesture on a social media live stream. It was just a man being a dad. But here is where it gets genuinely disturbing. Someone watched that moment and made a choice. They did not watch it and move on. They did not watch it and appreciate the simple family interaction. They watched it and saw an opportunity. They scrolled the footage. They cut the context. They repositioned the clip so that instead of seeing a father answering a question about his daughter's age, the viewer was led to believe that Judy was responding to something entirely different, something football-related, something that implied Watson was the guy. That is not a mistake. That is not an honest misinterpretation. That is a deliberate editorial decision made by someone who wanted to change the way people were thinking about this quarterback competition. That is misinformation being manufactured in real time and distributed across social media platforms to people who had no reason to question what they were seeing. And it worked. For 2 weeks it worked. The fact that it worked for 2 weeks before Judy came out to address it is itself a revealing detail, because it means Watson supporters had 2 full weeks of a narrative that they did not earn. 2 full weeks of people questioning Shedeur's hold on the job based on evidence that was completely fabricated. 2 full weeks of sports commentary being shaped by a lie. Judy went further than just explaining the video. He also said that after realizing how far it had spread, he felt the responsibility to go and talk to both quarterbacks personally. He went to Shedeur. He went to defame. He sat down with both of them individually and made sure they understood what had actually happened and that he had not been making any kind of public statement about who should be the starter. That level of professionalism is worth noting. That is a veteran receiver who has been in this league long enough to understand exactly how locker room chemistry gets destroyed by misunderstanding and assumption. He did not wait for the situation to blow over. He handled it directly, personally, and immediately. And when he walked into those conversations, the responses he got from both quarterbacks told its own story about who was operating with maturity and composure under pressure. Let us be very clear about what the existence of that doctored video actually tells us, because if you focus only on the debunking and miss the larger implication, you are missing the most important part of this story. Watson supporters manufactured evidence. Not embellished, not exaggerated, manufactured. Someone took real footage of a real person in a real moment and deliberately altered its context to create a false impression about what was happening inside the Cleveland Browns organization. That is not a fan being overly enthusiastic about their preferred quarterback. That is a calculated effort to shape public perception through dishonest means. And the reason that matters goes beyond this one video. The reason that matters is what it tells you about the strength of the actual argument for Watson. When you have a genuinely compelling case to make, you make it with real evidence. You point to the film. You cite the statistics. You highlight the moments where your guy outperformed expectations and demonstrated that he was the superior option for the job. You do not need to doctor footage of a receiver playing with his daughter. You do not need to weaponize an innocent family moment. You do not need to manufacture drama out of nothing, unless the real evidence is not on your side. And that is exactly the situation Watson's camp finds itself in. The real evidence is not on their side. The film is not on their side. The statistics are not on their side. The coaching staff's public and private commentary is not on their side. So instead of making a legitimate argument, someone chose to fabricate one. Here at Gridiron Ground, this is the kind of thing we watch for. Because the quality of the arguments being made for and against a player tells you just as much about where things
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Actually stand as any single piece of footage or stat line ever could. And right now, the arguments being made against Shedeur Sanders are built on nothing solid. They were built on a video that turned out to be fake. They were built on anonymous sources who have never been verified. They were built on speculation dressed up as insider knowledge. They were built on the assumption that if you repeat something loudly and consistently enough, people will eventually stop questioning whether it is true. Shedeur's supporters did not need to manufacture anything. They pointed at practice. They pointed at the box scores from training camp. They pointed at the film that showed a young quarterback operating with the kind of precision and composure that coaches spend entire careers looking for. They pointed at real things that actually happened and said, "Watch this." The contrast between those two approaches should tell you everything you need to know about who is actually winning this competition and who is simply refusing to acknowledge it. Now there is another layer to this that most people have not talked about yet. And it directly involves what Judy revealed when he explained why he handled the situation the way he did. Because the reasoning behind his decision to personally go and speak with both quarterbacks reveals something about the atmosphere in that locker room that changes how we should be reading everything else coming out of Cleveland. 7 years in the NFL teaches you things that no rookie can fully understand yet. It teaches you how quickly a locker room can fracture under the weight of a poorly handled situation. It teaches you how one misinterpreted moment can create divisions that last an entire season. It teaches you how important it is to control your own narrative before someone else controls it for you. Judy knows all of this, and his response to the viral video demonstrated exactly that kind of veteran awareness. The way he handled it was not the response of someone who was embarrassed or defensive. It was the response of someone who understood the stakes and took responsibility for managing them quickly and cleanly. He identified the problem. He recognized that the spread of that video had the potential to create genuine tension in the quarterback room, and he moved to neutralize that tension before it could take root. Going to both quarterbacks personally rather than just issuing a statement to the media was a deliberately chosen approach. A statement to the media would have handled the public narrative but left both players wondering what Jerry actually thought and what that video actually represented. By going directly to Shedeur and directly to Deshaun, he removed all ambiguity from the situation. He made it personal. He made it human. And in doing so, he actually strengthened the bonds in that locker room rather than letting the viral moment weaken them. But here is the detail that reveals the most about the actual atmosphere inside the Cleveland Browns building during this competition. Judy said specifically that after 7 years in the league and multiple quarterback competitions, he knew better than to publicly state which player should be the starter. He understood that doing so would create unnecessary drama and division. He understood that his role was to catch footballs, not to influence front office personnel decisions. Now hold that thought for a moment and apply some basic logic to it. If Jerry Judy is smart enough, experienced enough, and socially aware enough to avoid publicly commenting on the quarterback competition because he understands the consequences, then the idea that he would throw up 4 fingers on a live TikTok stream as a coded endorsement of Watson is completely absurd. That would be the exact opposite of the kind of careful, measured behavior he described as his approach to this situation. A man who refuses to publicly pick sides in a quarterback competition does not then go on social media and flash a secret hand signal to tell the world which quarterback has his support. That contradiction alone should have been enough to make people question the original narrative before Jerry even came out to address it. The innocent moment that someone chose to weaponize was not just innocent in terms of what Jerry was doing. It was innocent in a way that was completely consistent with everything we know about how Jerry Judy operates as a professional and as a teammate. He was being exactly who he always is. Someone took that authenticity and tried to corrupt it. And the fact that Shedeur Sanders responded to Jerry's personal conversation with the kind of composure and understanding that allowed the two of them to move forward without any lingering tension is its own important piece of information. That is not the response of a quarterback who is insecure about his position. That is not the response of someone who needed external validation to feel confident in where he stands. That is the response of a leader who already knows what he is and does not need a viral video or its debunking to confirm it. Strip away the viral video. Strip away the manufactured narrative. Strip away the anonymous sources and the speculation dressed up as insider knowledge. What you are left with is a practice field, a coaching staff, and 2 quarterbacks competing for a job. And on that practice field, the story has been remarkably consistent. Shedeur Sanders has been dominant. Not dominant in a way that required generous interpretation or favorable framing. Dominant in a way that showed up in the numbers, showed up in the film, showed up in the feedback from coaches who are paid to evaluate exactly this kind of performance without sentiment or loyalty. 21 completions out of 26 attempts, minimal turnovers, clean decision-making, accurate ball placement, an understanding of the offense that translated into consistent execution rather than occasional flashes surrounded by confusion and hesitation. These are the metrics that actually determine who wins a starting quarterback job in the National Football League, and on every single one of them, Shedeur was ahead. Watson, by contrast, was throwing 6 interceptions across 3 practices. 6. In a setting where the entire purpose is to demonstrate that you can be trusted with the football in live game situations. In a setting where every single decision is being evaluated by coaches who are deciding whether to hand you the most important role on the team. 6 interceptions is not a trend that gets explained away. It is a pattern that tells the coaching staff something definitive about where a...
Before going further, if you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing you the content you love. Share this video with your friends so they don't miss out on all the drama and excitement.
Player currently stands. Film backed up those numbers, where Shedeur was operating with conviction and moving through his progressions with the kind of timing that comes from genuine preparation and understanding. Watson was looking hesitant, where Shedeur was delivering the football on time and in rhythm with his receivers. Watson was forcing throws into coverage that should have been redirected, where Shedeur was managing the pocket and protecting the ball in situations that required restraint. Watson was creating unnecessary risk. None of this is speculation. None of this required someone to doctor footage or manufacture a narrative. It was just what was happening on the field every single day that the Cleveland Browns practiced in front of coaches, staff, and in sessions that were observed and reported on by credible journalists who covered the team. And yet, for 2 weeks, A significant portion of the public conversation about this quarterback competition was shaped by a 4-second clip of a receiver raising 4 fingers because his daughter is 4 years old. That is the power of misinformation in the modern media environment. It does not need to be compelling. It does not need to hold up under scrutiny. It just needs to arrive at the right moment and fill a space that people are already emotionally invested in. The space it filled was the doubt that some people wanted to feel about Shedeur Sanders. Not doubt that was earned by anything he did wrong on the field, but doubt that came from wanting the competition to be closer than the film was suggesting it actually was. Doubt that came from a loyalty to Watson that required some alternative explanation for why the numbers were not supporting him. And that doctored video provided exactly the alternative explanation those people were looking for. Now that it has been removed from the equation, all of that doubt has to either find new evidence to stand on or accept that it was never based on anything real. There is a version of this story where Shedeur Sanders lets the noise get to him, where the viral video and the manufactured narrative and the constant questioning of his position starts to creep into his preparation and his confidence, where he walks onto that practice field carrying the weight of a media environment that has been working against him, and that heaviness shows up in his mechanics or his decision-making or his relationship with his receivers. That version of the story did not happen. While the Watson narrative was being constructed and amplified across social media and sports commentary platforms, Shedeur Sanders was still throwing, still executing, still building the kind of consistency in his game that does not get built by someone who is rattled by outside noise. The practice statistics did not dip during the 2 weeks that video was circulating. The film did not show a quarterback who was distracted or unsettled. The reports from people who were actually inside those practices described a young quarterback who was focused, composed, and operating with the kind of professional maturity that you typically associate with players much further along in their careers. That composure is not accidental. It is a reflection of preparation and character, and it is one of the qualities that makes Shedeur Sanders genuinely interesting as a franchise quarterback prospect, because the mental side of playing that position at the highest level is just as demanding as the physical and technical side. Quarterbacks get rattled. It happens to veterans with decades of experience. The moment a narrative turns against you in the media, the moment the fan base starts questioning your position, the moment a viral story puts your hold on the starting job in doubt, those are the moments that reveal what a player is actually built from. And what Shedeur Sanders revealed during those 2 weeks was that he is built from something solid. The receivers around him saw it too. The offensive linemen who protect him in practice reps saw it. The coaches who were evaluating every single decision he made saw it. And now, with the debunking of the viral video clearing the air around this competition, all of the people who make the actual decision about who starts week 1 can look back at that period and see a quarterback who did not blink. That is the kind of information that does not show up in a box score or a completion percentage, but it shows up in the confidence a coaching staff has in their quarterback when the regular season begins and the stakes are real, and there is no practice rep safety net underneath every throw. That is the kind of information that confirms a decision rather than creating one. And for Todd Monken, it was one more confirmation stacking on top of all the others that had already been building throughout training camp. Shedeur Sanders earned this job before the viral video. He maintained it during the viral video. And now that the viral video has been exposed and removed from the conversation, the evidence in his favor is simply more visible to more people than it was before. There are 3 people inside the Cleveland Browns organization whose decision this ultimately belongs to: Todd Monken, the head coach, Andrew Berry, the general manager, and Jimmy Haslam, the owner. And with Judy's statement now on the record and the manufactured narrative officially dismantled, all 3 of them are in a position that they were not in 2 weeks ago. They have clarity. Todd Monken had been watching practice every day and seeing what the film was showing him. He did not need a viral video to tell him what was happening in his own quarterback competition, but the existence of that video and the narrative it generated created a kind of external pressure that no head coach is completely immune to. When a story spreads widely enough and loudly enough, it starts to become part of the context in which decisions get made, even when the decision maker knows better than to give that story more weight than it deserves. With that story now confirmed as fabricated, Monken can make his call without any of that external pressure attached to it. He can look at the film, look at the statistics, look at the daily observations from his coaching staff, and make the decision that all of those inputs have been pointing toward for weeks. And that decision is Shedeur Sanders. Andrew Berry's job as general manager is to evaluate talent and build a roster that can compete at the highest level. The quarterback is the single most important personnel decision any front office makes, and Berry has had access to all of the same information that Monken has been working from. The numbers, the film, the daily practice reports, the feedback from coaches and trainers and the players who share a huddle with both quarterbacks every day. Nothing in any of that information was pointing toward Watson as the superior option. And now, the one piece of information that people outside the organization were using to argue that there was some hidden inside preference for Watson has been proven to be entirely false. Berry can look at his owner and look at his head coach and tell them with complete confidence that the data supports the decision they were already leaning toward. Jimmy Haslam is an owner who has been visibly invested in Shedeur Sanders from the moment the selection was made. That investment was not blind loyalty. It was based on evaluation, on belief in the player's potential, and on a genuine conviction that this was the quarterback who could lead the franchise into a new era of sustained competitiveness. For the past 2 weeks, that conviction had been tested by a viral moment that suggested maybe the locker room had a different opinion. Now Haslam knows that moment was a lie. Now he can stand behind his quarterback without any asterisk. Now he can face the media and the fan base and point to the film and the statistics and the character that Shedeur demonstrated during the entire process and say, "This is why we made this decision, and this is why we are standing by it." Right here on Gridiron Ground, we have been saying from the start that the evidence on the field was the only evidence that mattered. Every number, every film breakdown, every credible report from inside those practices pointed toward the same conclusion. And if you have been watching this channel and following along with everything we have been covering, then none of what is happening right now should surprise you. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what is coming next in this quarterback story is going to be something you do not want to miss. Notifications on, because we are not slowing down. When Week 1 arrives and Shedeur Sanders walks out onto that field as the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, the context surrounding that moment is going to be different from what it might have been if the viral video had never been debunked. Because debunking it did not just remove a false piece of evidence. It told a story about who Shedeur Sanders is and what he represents for this franchise. He is not just a quarterback who won a position battle on the merits of his performance, although he absolutely did that. He is a quarterback who won a position battle while a coordinated effort was being made to undermine his position through manufactured drama and doctored footage. He won it anyway. He won it because the film was too clear to be argued with, and the statistics were too consistent to be explained away, and his composure under pressure was too obvious to be dismissed. That is a different kind of winning, and it sets a tone for how this chapter of Cleveland Browns football is going to be written. The franchise has been searching for a quarterback who could provide genuine long-term stability at the most important position on the field. They have been through the cycles of veteran gambles and failed reclamation projects, and the annual conversation about whether this year's option is finally the answer. And now, they have a young quarterback who has already demonstrated in the most public and pressurized circumstances possible that he has the mental makeup to handle the job. Rumors suggest that the coaching staff has been impressed not just by Shedeur's statistical output during training camp, but by the way he has carried himself throughout the entire process, including the period when the viral video was circulating and the external pressure was at its highest. Reports from inside the building indicate that his preparation habits and his engagement with the coaching staff have been consistently professional and high-level throughout. It has been said by people close to the situation that his relationship with his receivers has continued to grow stronger even through the noise, which is exactly what you need from a franchise quarterback going into a regular season. The locker room is not divided. The veterans are not secretly pulling for the other guy. The narrative that was constructed around that viral video has been completely removed from the foundation of this conversation, and what is left is a team that is preparing to go out and compete with Shedeur Sanders under center, and a quarterback room that has handled a genuinely difficult situation with remarkable professionalism. Watson will handle his role in whatever way the organization asks him to. That is the reality of how these situations resolve. But the competition is settled. The evidence made it clear before the viral video was ever debunked. And now that it has been debunked, the clarity is complete. Shedeur Sanders is the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. He earned it on the field. He proved it in the film. He demonstrated it in the moments when the external pressure was highest. And he did it while someone was actively trying to manufacture a reason to question whether he deserved it. That is who this kid is, and Cleveland is about to find out what that means in real game situations. Here is what this entire story ultimately comes down to. A viral moment was manufactured to create doubt about a young quarterback who had been doing everything right. It was built on nothing real. It was constructed from an innocent family moment that someone deliberately weaponized for the purpose of changing the narrative around a quarterback competition that the real evidence had already settled. And it did not work. Judy came out and told the truth. He confirmed what the film had already been saying. He removed the last piece of so-called evidence that Watson's supporters had been leaning on. And in doing so, he gave everyone watching this competition a completely unobstructed view of what has actually been happening on that practice field in Cleveland. What has actually been happening is Shedeur Sanders outperforming a veteran quarterback on every measurable metric that matters. What has actually been happening is a young franchise player building the kind of consistency and composure that winning teams are constructed around. What has actually been happening is a quarterback competition that was never as close as the manufactured narrative wanted you to believe. The misinformation tried to rewrite the story. The debunking restored it. And now the only question left is what Shedeur Sanders does with Week 1 when it arrives. Because everything up to this point has been prologue. The real chapter starts when the lights come on and the crowd fills the stadium and the game is real and the decisions matter and there is no practice rep safety net underneath any of it. If everything we have seen from this quarterback up to this point means anything at all, the answer to that question is going to be very, very clear. Stay right here on Gridiron Ground because we are going to be with you for every single moment of it.